The Windows Registry, Part 2 of 2. Significant Registry Keys. To gain a better understanding of the structure of the Windows Registry, let's examine some of the more significant and frequently used root keys, subkeys, and values. For instance, the key that contains the list of installed applications in Windows is HKey Local Machine, Software, Microsoft, Windows, Current Version, Uninstall. This can be useful for applications that do not uninstall cleanly. This happens from time to time. Sometimes the uninstall routine will not clean up after itself, or delete all of the files, INI configuration settings, or DLLs. So you can look in this key and see what is in the uninstall list, and if you need to, manually edit the settings there. Here are keys that will auto-load applications only once. HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Once. HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Service Once. HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Services Once. And HK Current User Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Once. Here are some keys that auto-load applications every single time Windows starts. HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run. HK Current User Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run. HK Current User Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Windows, and HK Current User Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Windows Run. Here are some keys that auto-load services. HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Service, HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Services, HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Service Once, and HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run Services Once. Here are some keys that control group policies, security, and user rights. They are HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Policies Explorer Run, and HK Current User Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Policies Explorer Run. Here's a key that automatically loads dynamic link library files. It's HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Shell Service Object Delay Load. This key automatically causes chkdsk.exe or autocheck.exe to run automatically at startup. It's HK Local Machine System Current Control Set Control Session Manager. Here are some additional startup keys and values. Don't worry, we're not going to read them all, but just take a gander at them and familiarize yourself with some of them. The Windows Registry database is humongous, and it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes when you take a first glance at it. So let's take a look at some examples of making changes to Windows through editing the registry database. In this first example, we're going to edit the registry to auto-load an application on startup. We'll create a string value in the registry key, HK Local Machine Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Run. We'll place the absolute path to and name of the file that we want to auto-start in the string value's properties, and we'll reboot to test it. So one of the first things we're going to try is auto-starting a file from the Windows Registry database. And there are several ways to do that. I could go to All Programs and place something in the Startup folder. And of course there's a startup tool, msconfig. I'll bring msconfig up. We can go here and we could add items there a bit. What we want to do is use the System Registry database. And another benefit of this is a lot of times when you're cleaning spyware or malware, they will put keys and values in the registry to auto-load files. So you may clean the file, or your antivirus software may clean it, and then you reboot and you notice it's back again. Well, that's because DLLs and binary executables are being told to load from the registry automatically every time you boot. So you have to go out and pull all those keys out to completely clean the machine. And then other times you just want something to start automatically, but maybe you want it to be a little bit more subtle, or obfuscated, or not necessarily something you just put in the startup folder. So for whatever reason, let's take a look at that. And there are two basic keys we can auto-start things in. There's HK Current User and HK Local Machine. And HK Local Machine, think of that being applied and occurring every time the machine boots. It's related to the hardware as opposed to individual user accounts. HK Current User, on the other hand, is built from HK Users, and that's when a user logs on. So depending on when you want to auto-start things, either via when a user logs on or only once when the machine boots up, that would depend on that would determine where you place the values in the registry keys that you're going to create. So let's say that we just want it to happen one time when we boot up the computer. So we're going to put it in HK Local Machine. So where I want to go is HK Local Machine, Software, and I want to go down and I want to select Microsoft. I'm going to hit W to go down to the W's and select Windows. And I want to select current version. And I'm going to hit R to go down to the R's. And there's two primary keys here, Run and Run Once. And if we look at Run, you can see that Microsoft Office has already put some entries here for Groove Monitor and VMware tools. The VMware software I use for doing these tutorials and video captures and whatnot. But anything else we wanted to put here is fair game. So in other words, I'm just going to copy the values that Microsoft has. These are, Reg SC. Those are just plain string values. So if I select this key here, or sub key of the root key, I can right click and say New and String Value. And you can call it anything you want. You can make it look official Windows. We could call it Win32 blah blah or whatever. We could call it banana. It doesn't really matter. It's just a variable name. What matters is the data or the content that goes inside of it. So if I double click, what I want to do is in this string, just like up here, I want to put the exact absolute path to the file that I want to load automatically. So in other words, for VMware tray or user, they put C:\program files VMware tools VMware tray exe and so forth. I need to do the same thing. So let's say I want to load a music video. That's what I'm going to do. Well, I went to I use Firefox and the tool download helper, and I just kind of rip these music videos off, or from YouTube, rip off. But you can rip them from YouTube pages using the free tool download helper. And you'll need a player to play them, so I use VLC Media Player. It's an awesome Swiss Army knife. It plays just about everything. Make sure that you have associated a file type association. So, in other words, if you haven't already, once you installed it, you want to make sure that if this wasn't recognized as a file type, it wouldn't run automatically. It would just give an error message when I boot it. Okay, so being sure of all that, I have a file here. Let's play Fireflies automatically when we boot. So I just need the path, which if I go in the address bar, the easiest thing for me, I can just copy and paste it. So copy that, and then I need the name of the file, fireflies.flv. We just want to make sure that it's correct, so I'm going to paste it in here, / fireflies.flv, and put that in there. And if you're in doubt, again, if the path is wrong or the file name is wrong, it's not going to load properly. User's just going to get an error message when they reboot. So to test it out, you could just open up My Computer or Windows Explorer and paste that path in, right? And if you hit enter and the file comes up and plays, well, you're good. So we know that Windows will be able to find it when the registry requests it and tries to load it. Okay, so it's all set. All that remains now is let's reboot Windows 7 and test it out and see if it loads. So I'm just going to restart. And Windows is loading now. My excessively loud DVD drive is spinning out. And we're ready to log in. I'll use my extremely long 4-character dictionary style, extremely difficult to brute force password, which is PASS. Now we've logged in and the registry database is loading. It goes and finds the file, and there we go. It loads up Fireflies and plays it automatically. And this would continue to happen every single time I boot Windows 7 until I pull that key out of the registry database. In the second example, we're going to lock down the desktop wallpaper. To do this, first we're going to create a new key. In HKey Current User Software, Microsoft Windows Current Version Policies, call it Active Desktop. Once we create this new key, we're going to create a new value inside of it, a 32-bit D word called No Changing Wallpaper. Now these are Boolean values, so 1 is true or on and 0 is false or off. Next, we're going to create another new key. In HKey Current User Software, Microsoft Windows Current Version Policies, the name of this new key will be System. Once we do this, in this new key, we'll create a string value called Wallpaper. We'll change the value to the absolute path and file name of the wallpaper file that we want to lock the desktop to. Finally, we're going to create yet another new key, an HKey current user software Microsoft Windows current version policies. It will be called system, and within this new key we'll create a string called wallpaper style, and we'll change the value to 0, 1, or 2, 0 for center, 1 for tile, and 2 for stretch. Finally, we need to log out and log back in to complete the process and test it to see if it actually works. Next, we're going to have a little fun, and we're just going to download and lock the desktop wallpaper. So we'll set it in the registry, and we'll make it so that the user can't change it. Now you could also do this with group policy or local security policy, but this is just sort of an alternate way to do it just by making registry key and value edits. And this might help you, if you want to get a little frisky with a coworker or companion or something. It's not necessarily the usual way that you might try this. So to have a little fun, first we're going to go online, and we'll go to Google Images and try to find some really annoying desktop wallpaper.
So let's see. The Google Images. And let's see. Once you're one of those bronies at 4chan, this will probably be some pretty annoying wallpaper. How about we get this one? Oh yeah, definitely. Imagine having to stare at that all day. Alright, this one was fun. Not really hurt anything, just maybe annoying or maybe a little bit. So let's save it somewhere where we want to put the wallpaper. I'm just going to make a folder here and call it annoy. And this will be mylotonyjpg. That's fine. Alright.
So we downloaded the wallpaper. Now let's do the registry edit. So I'm going to open up our registry edit tool with regedit and confirm it with user account control. And where we want to go this time, on the last edit we went to HKey local machine. Now we're going to go to HKey current user. And in a similar way, we need to drill down to system policies, not policies, software. I'm going to go here and choose Microsoft. And Windows current version, let me just hit the W down. The W's here in Windows current version. And I want to go to policies. And again, just check yourself against the path here. And make sure you create it in the right place in the registry database. So HKey current user, or that would be abbreviated HKCU, software Microsoft Windows current version policies. If you look at the path down here. So what you need to do is you need to create a couple of subkeys, and then within those subkeys you have to create some variables or values. So the first one I want to make is active desktop. I'm going to right click and say new and key and active desktop. Okay. And inside of active desktop I want to create a new 32-bit D word. So I'm going to right click on the key that I just created. I'm going to say new. I'm going to say D word 32-bit value. And I'm going to call this one no changing wallpaper. Not case sensitive, but it is, character sensitive. So you want to make sure that you don't. If I said no change instead of no changing wallpaper, then it wouldn't recognize the variable. And it wouldn't work. Let me pull that out maybe so you can see it better. All right. So what have we done so far? We've added a key, and then in that key we've added a value here, a 32-bit D word value. And then 1 would be true and 0 would be false. In programming, Boolean value, 0, false, 1, true. So let's set it to be true so that the user will not be allowed to change the wallpaper. Right, so that's sort of the first part of it. Now the next part of it, we need to create another key. So I need to go back up to system, or excuse me, to policies, and I need to create a new key called system. And you may already have a key called system. If you do, you don't have to create it. But if this is sort of a default install of Windows 7 like I've got here, you probably won't have a system key, so you have to make one inside of policies. So again, just like we do with Active Desktop, I right-clicked and I made a new key called system. And in that new key called system, I want to right-click and I want to add this time a string value. All right, so that's the reg underscore sc or string value. And again, the name is important, so you want to call it wallpaper. Be careful not to misspell it. It needs to match the variable name exactly. And here we need to find the absolute path to the wallpaper file and the name of the file. So I just double click and I can add the value here, but I've got to make sure I've got the right path. So again, just like we did in the previous example, I'd open up my computer, I'd go to the C drive, I'd go to the folder Annoy where I downloaded my little pony.jpg, woohoo! And again, unless you're a 4chan brony, which I guess you could be, but You have to have respect for men who are secure enough in their manliness to be into My Little Ponies. But hey, so I'm going to right click and say copy, and then notice the file name mylittlepony.jpg, lowercase. Just need to make sure that I put that in the path. Paste it, backslash, mylittlepony.jpg. Imagine having your wallpaper locked to that. Oh, your worst nightmare. No, not for you. Alright, I just want to test and make sure I have the right path. So I'm going to paste, oops, let me grab this whole string here. I just want to make sure, again, you know, before you log out and log in and test it, you want to make sure that the registry can find the file. Alright, so I pasted it in, could open it up, so the registry, so I've got the right path, it can find the file. So we added 2 keys so far, active desktop and system. Within those keys, we've added 2 values, no changing wallpaper, and set it to true. And we've added wallpaper, and we put in the path to the wallpaper file. Now the last thing to do is to set up wallpaper style. And again, this is also in system, and I'm just going to create, in this case, a new, and I want to do another string value. Alright, so a new string value, and I'm going to call it wallpaper style, and notice it's a reg_sv value or string value. And the options are 0 for center, 1 for tile, and 2 for stretch. So I'm going to stretch it, because that'll probably make it more annoying than anything else. Just make it fill the screen, right? So the option I want to pass into the string is just going to be 2 to stretch. And now we're all set, okay? So that's all of the key entries that we need. Now this won't take effect until I log out and log back in. Alright, so it hasn't changed anything yet. However, even though I haven't logged out yet, watch. If I were to go into Personalize, and if I were to try to select my desktop background, notice that I don't really have the option to select anything else. So it's set up for the hack. It's set up, but it just we haven't. Even if I change the theme, it's not going to have. Oh my gosh, it's even girlier. But look, it's you know it's not really doing anything as far as so. Even without logging out and logging in, some effects have taken place. But to get the full effect, you know, you do this on your buddy's machine, maybe when he's on a lunch break or something, then log out. And there might be legitimate reasons for doing this. I don't know. Maybe a company wants to, you know, they want to be real Nazis and make everybody have the same wallpaper and lock it down to some company's logo or something. I guess that could be awful. But alright, so I've logged out, and now I'm going to log in as C Germany as a user. And when I do, notice that the beautiful My Little Pony wallpaper now fills my desktop. Oh my. So as I panic, thinking, oh no, what's happened to my wallpaper? I don't like this. I can't do this. Let's see if we can't change it in some way. So if I try to go here, notice that there's no option. I can't really do anything. I'll change the theme. Maybe that'll work. Nope. 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 Nothing works. So the only way to fix it would be for me to pull those registry keys out, and then I'd have to log back out and log back in, and then I'd be allowed to change my wallpaper. And you can play with all kinds of other settings. I mean, you can lock the ScreenSaver, you can lock the theme, the colors. You can do just about anything if you find the right registry keys for it. So, but you know, I'm effectively locked here. There's no way I can modify that wallpaper no matter what I do. You know, if I found the file, I could delete it and get rid of it. But I'm kind of limited there as far as what I can do for that. I'll bring it back to the default theme there. And all right, so to undo that, let's undo what we did. I could just delete the keys, or if I wish, if I wanted to leave the keys in place, I could just simply come up here and I could change this from true to false. Just make it 0 either way. And then I could pull out, I'll pull out the annoying wallpaper key there, why not? And the wallpaper style key, why not? Value, excuse me. And you can leave that if you want, or you could delete it either way, it doesn't matter. But again, to affect the changes, we would just want to log out and log back in, and things would be hunky-dory. Although, even if I didn't log out and log back in, because of that setting, if I wanted to, see now I can manually change the wallpaper. So, I've got it back, just by pulling these registry keys out. But if I had done it and logged out and logged back in, it would have been the same thing. The next few examples involve manipulating the screensaver with the registry. First, we're going to set the screensaver using the registry. We'll go to HKeyCurrent User Control Panel Desktop, and we're going to create a string value called ScreenSave.exe. Then we're going to either give it the relative or absolute path to the screensaver that we want to select with the registry, regardless of what the user happens to click on when they right-click on the desktop and select preferences. So it could be using a system variable like %system root% \system32 \bubbles.scr if we wanted to select the bubble screen. Or if you look in C:\Windows \system32, by default, all of your screensaver files, at least the built-in ones, are located there, so you can select one of those, any one that you like. Next, we're going to use the registry to either enable or disable the screensaver. To do this, we'll go to HKeyCurrent User Control Panel Desktop. We're going to look for a 32-bit DWORD value called ScreenSave active, and it's Boolean, so we can set it to 0 for off and 1 for on. And then we're going to use the registry to either enable or disable a screensaver password. We're going to go to HKeyCurrent User Control Panel Desktop. We're going to look for a 32-bit DWORD value called ScreenSaver is secure, and it's Boolean, so once again we can turn it off with 0 or turn it on with 1. Next, we're going to change the timeout value for the screensaver, again using the system registry database. So we're going to go to HKeyCurrent User Control Panel Desktop, and this time we're going to create a string called ScreenSave Timeout, and we're going to specify the amount of time in seconds for the desired timeout. Finally, we're going to take a look at enabling and disabling the screensaver page using the Windows Registry database. First, we're going to go to HKeyCurrent User Software, Microsoft Windows Current Version Policies, and create a new key called System if we need to. Then, within this new key, we're going to create a 32-bit DWORD value called no_disp_scr_savepage. It's Boolean, so we can use 1 to hide the page and 0 to show the page. Let's look at editing several registry key settings that control the screensaver. Second, I'm just going to open up Regedit and confirm with user account control. And here are the hives and my 5 main root keys, and then we can drill down into the subkeys and things and values. But first thing we'll do is let's look at whether or not we can turn the screensaver on or off, and that's with the value that we can set called ScreenSave active. And so what I want to do here is go to HKeyCurrent User, and from HKeyCurrent User I want to go to Control Panel and Desktop, and then here what I want to do is find ScreenSave active. So I'm just going to hit S to go down to the S's, and notice that it's set to 1. Remember, 1's true, 0 is false. It's Boolean programming value. So if I were to right click here and click on Personalize, here's my screensaver. I don't have any selected, but if I did, it's enabled. Okay, so if I didn't want that, I could just make that value 0 and turn it off, and I could make it true and turn it on. That's sort of our first setting. The next thing, how can we use the registry to specify which screensaver to use? Again, if you notice, right now I don't have any screensaver selected. Well, what I can do is in the same location, under Control Panel and Desktop, I can make myself a string value. I'm going to do that. So on Desktop, I'm going to right click and say New, and a string value, in other words, reg_sz, and it's a special name, all caps, ScrnSave.exe. Again, careful, watch the spelling there, ScrnSave.exe. Okay, and then I can change its property, just double click and open it to give it the path to the screensaver. Now by default, all of your screensavers are located in Windows and System32. Let me hit the S to go down to System32 here, and they have a file extension of .scr. Okay, so if I were to sort this by type, sort that by type, and then so notice all these files here: bubbles.scr, mystify.scr, photo screensaver. I could also open up a command prompt and just type in DAR space *.scr if you want to do it from the command prompt. But I figured this would be easier to see. So 3D, but these are all the built, and you may have other screensavers or special ones that you've installed, whatever. But I'm just working with the default installation of Windows 7 here. So inside of C:\Windows \System32, Here are all my screensavers. So I could just type out the absolute path if I wanted to. In other words, I could go, let's say I want to set it to bubbles. Bubbles. So I could go Windows, and then System32, and then bubbles.scr. And that would be the absolute path to the file. Or you could use a variable, like the percent system root percent, which stands for the system root. You could do it that way as well if you wanted to. But I'll use the absolute path in this example. Let me pull this out so you can see it. All right, so now in the registry, it's pre-selecting or specifying my screensaver. Now remember that I hadn't changed it, and previously no screensaver was selected. So if I click on right-click and go to personalize here, notice that now the bubble screensaver is the setting. So remember in our discussion about how the registry works and how it loads, it's built and configured dynamically each time the computer loads, and then it's read from continuously for everything you do. When you right-click on the desktop and you select personalize or screen resolution or whatever, the registry is continuously read from and written to the entire time Windows is running. So it's a vital feature of Windows, along with the kernel and the Win32 subsystems and all the other bits and parts and bits and pieces of Windows. So anyway, we've now looked at how to turn the screensaver feature on and off with ScreenSave active. We've created a key called ScreenSaveExe. Now we know how to set it, and we can even lock it down so that they have to have that screensaver for one reason or another. Well, that brings us to the next useful feature. Let's say that we want to specify that they have to, utilize a password. And it depends. Not every screensaver necessarily supports password functionality. But if I were to click on this, notice the option here on resume display log on screen or password, and it's set for 1 minute. So if I wanted to, via registry key, I could specify that they need to type in a password or password protect. That might be useful for security reasons. Let's say that you want to make sure that after anybody who walks away from their workstation after 5 or 10 minutes, screensaver pops on and they got to type their password to get in. Maybe that would help secure your cubicles or your office or whatever. Who knows? For fun, for luck, for laughs, for some good reason. But anyway, I would want to create another device. So right-click on desktop. I'm going to say new, and this time I want to say screensaver is secure. And again, the data type this time is a little bit different. I want to do a 32-bit D word. And okay, and this will just be a Boolean value, true or false. So screensaver is secure. Again, watch your spelling because the registry is very picky about variable names. It's not case sensitive. You don't have to worry about the case, but you do want to watch, that you don't misspell something or use the wrong character. So screensaver is secure, and I can double click to open it, and I can set it to be true or false. It's false by default. 1 true would turn it on. So now my screensavers will require a password to log in. It'll be password protected. Next thing we'll look at is how can we set the timeout. Alright, and so that's measured in seconds, and the default minimum is like 60 seconds or a minute. So again, if I wanted to do that, I could set that here. I could right click, I could say new, and this time I want to create a string value, and I'm going to call it ScreenSave Timeout. ScreenSave Timeout. And let's say I wanted to make it 2 minutes. I could do 120 minutes, or 120 seconds, and that would give me 2 minutes. 2 cycles of 60 seconds. Okay, so far we've looked at turning the screensaver on and off, and I'm just going to go here and then back here to refresh everything. I could have hit F5, or gone up here and refreshed it. But if now they're all together. So screensave active, we've added and set it. That was already there. Excuse me. We set the boolean to be true. We could turn it on, turn it off, make it false. Screensaver is secure. We turn, that's a boolean. We set it to be true, so now we need to type in a password. Screensaver timeout. It's going to be 2 minutes or 120 seconds. We manually specified the screensaver that we want to select, so it's pre-selected. And then the last thing we might do, all of these have been in the same location, right? HK current user, control panel, and desktop. But the last thing we might want to do with the screensaver is let's disable the screensaver page so they can't really change the screensaver or affect any of its settings. Okay, and if we wanted to do that, then that's in a little bit different location. So we want to go to HK current user, same root key up here, but from HKey current user, we're going to go to Software and Microsoft. I'll hit the W's because we want to go to Windows. And in Windows, we want to go into current version. We want to go into policies from current version. So then I want to create a subkey here. Alright, so I'm going to create a subkey if it's not already there, and I'm going to call it System. And then in this subkey, I want to create a new 32-bit dword value. So new 32-bit dword value. And this value is going to be called no disp scr sav page, short for no display screensaver page. But again, watch your, the case isn't necessarily important, but watch your syntax. You know, if I misspell it or if I get any characters out of place, it's not going to read that variable. So again, no disp scr sav page. And I just hit it in caps to kind of illustrate that. So it's a Boolean value. So remember, that means 0 is false and 1 is true. 0 is off, 1 is on. So if I wanted to specify they couldn't save the, modify the screensaver settings, then I want to make it true. And then it wouldn't display that page. Okay, so in the registry bubbles, it's been hard coded. It's been set. The timeout's been set to 2 minutes. Password has been set. It's been set to active. And now I've disabled that page entirely. Okay. And so I'm going to personalize here. And notice what happens if I click on it. Your system administrator has disabled launching of the display control panel.